introduce Nellie Fernandez. She's also our Vice President for Osceola Action Committee. Can you please give her a big round of applause? She's going to be our moderator tonight. I am happy that she's going to be up there and not me. All right, so the next gentleman is Mark Cross. Can you please give Mark Cross a big round of applause? He's the chairman of Osceola County Republican Party. He will be our moderator. And Christian Suarez is the co-founder, Political Salsa and Public Trust Network. He will be your moderator as well. Please give him a big round of applause. Thank you so much, Christian, for coming here. And at this time, if you guys don't have a fry or you have something that cannot hurt somebody else, if you'd like to create a fake drum roll, we'll go ahead. That's pretty good. All right. We're going to go ahead. Thank you. All right. So we're going to go ahead and bring up our candidates at this. Davenport, the wife of candidate Ken Davenport. Can you please give her a big round of applause? Oh, she's not here. Okay, so she did not show. Okay, so the next person we have is Scotty Moore. Scotty Moore, can you please make the stage?
Always present.
There we go. Now, Jeremy, so did we get Erica Booth? Did she want to show?
She did, and now she's a no-show.
Well, that's interesting. So I guess I got my hair done for nothing. So please go ahead and seat there, Scotty. So at this stage of the game, guys, Erica Booth is not here, and that's disappointing, right? Because at the end of the day, we have somebody that's in our school district. She's running, and now she's going to run for higher office after being only part of the school district for how long? 5 months. I would say 5 months on the job training gives you a lot of quality to go ahead and start running major things. Okay, so I'm being sarcastic, ladies and gentlemen. All right, here we go. So do we have anybody else? Thank you, sir. Thank you. All right, do we have anybody else that's going to be on our panel tonight? So ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, here's our opportunity to interview Scotty Moore with our panelists to let him go ahead and start getting everything that we need. 1 second, Jeremy, go ahead. We got to do the rules. I'm getting there. All right, so the rules are, it says, Cliff, don't screw it up. Here we go. Number 1, we have 3-minute candidate introductions is the rules. Number 2, the moderator questions has 6 total questions from moderators. 3-minute response from each candidate, or one candidate at this point. 1-minute rebuttal if the name mentioned by any of the candidates. And number three, the audience questions, 3-minute response time. Again, if you have a question that you would like to be asked, if you can see Courtney back there, she's holding up a piece of paper. Courtney's holding that up, and if anyone put a question, bring that so that we can ask it. And closing. So at this stage of the game, ladies and gentlemen, it's now time for you guys to interview Mr. Moore. So take it away, panelists. Thank you. All right.
Intro.
Is it on? It's on. All right. You gotta flip it up.
On now.
There we go. Nailed it.
I thought it said off,
Check,
so I
check.
was like, oh, it's off.
Check.
So mine is finally on. Thank you for showing up.
Thank you.
It shows how
So
much.
I think we have to do the intro Jeremy's saying here.
3 minutes.
3-minute.
Oh, what am my intro about me? Oh yeah. I was like, not me.
All right. Well, hey, good evening, everybody. Thank you for making the time to come out here. I'm very, very grateful. And just like you, I had to endure the crazy traffic making it here. So I appreciate you enduring the traffic to make it all the way here. So family, faith, and even service are major components of what I believe in and what I've really invested my whole life in. And it's based on the future and where we're going. So my family is first and foremost super important to me. One of the main reasons why I got involved in politics. I think many of us are involved in politics because we're concerned not only about our immediate family right now, but future generations to come. My faith is the most important thing about me, and it informs how I live my life and my moral character. Service has been something that I have really been a part of me since my whole adult life, and I'll give you one example of many. When I was 18, in my rural community nearby, we had a flood, and I organized a bunch of my classmates
to get out of school, and we went and sandbagged and really alongside this community. Now, this wasn't directly our community, but it was our community, if you know what I'm saying, and it matters. And that's been something that's characterized my life. When I went to college, I continued to serve. When I graduated college, I had to join ranks with an outfit called Campus Crusade for Christ. It's a missions organization. In my whole adult life, I've been serving the community and people, sharing the good message of Jesus Christ, and also helping them understand themselves better, serving marriages, families, our community. This is something that I care deeply about, and these are the things that I'm going to continue to do when you help elect me to Florida State Rep District 35. Thank you.
Okay, so now it's my turn,
Yes.
right?
Right.
Sorry, I get nervous when I get up here, so I get a little ditzy sometimes.
You're great.
So
You're
I
doing great.
apologize.
You're doing great.
Okay, so the first question is, with work, family, and life commitments fulfilling our everyday lives, what is your why for running for Florida State House District 35?
Yeah. So I touched on it a little bit, and I'll just kind of hammer it home. When we've all seen the news and what's been happening, the weaponization of government, election integrity, the indoctrination of our kids, and really an agenda to go after our kids, the family structure. And I'm a person who thinks in the futuristic, and I'm thinking it's bad now, but how bad is it going to get if we don't do anything about it? And I believe that not all candidates are alike, not everyone's alike, and just because someone calls themselves a leader, how are they leading? And I'm really concerned with some of the leadership that we have within our government, from the federal government to the local government here. And as I was praying, again, mentioning my faith, I was praying about that, and I felt a very strong call to step in and throw my hat in the ring and be a part of the solution and not just complain any longer. And so this past cycle, as you may remember, I ran for U.S. Congress right here in this district against Democrat Darren Soto, who votes 100% of the time with Nancy Pelosi. And all of those policies that I strongly disagree with, I said no, and I showed up to continue to fight. Darren Soto, I called him No-Show Soto because many times he wouldn't show up. I believe showing up, fighting, and fighting for what's good, right, family, parents' rights, strong conservative issues like the right to life, Second Amendment, those are things that I'm going to continue to fight for. That's my why. And I want to fight for you and your families as well. So do we need to wait 3 minutes and then 3 minutes? Or do we just kind of skip that part?
Yeah, we can skip that, but I have a question for you, Scotty. And first of all, I'd just like to say it's really a shame we didn't get all of the candidates tonight, because these forums are set up so everybody can find out a little bit about the people who are going to be on the ballot. And it's really a shame, and I really want to commend you, Scotty, for showing up. It's really a shame.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, yeah,
Feel free to take a picture.
yeah,
You can
absolutely.
even label the chairs with the names.
We can do that. But Scotty, your next question, you'll have 3 minutes. If that's not long enough, just mention your name and you can have your own rebuttal. If you're elected, what committee or subcommittee assignments do you really want? And as a freshman state rep, what is going to be your priority legislative agenda issue? And how will that issue positively affect District 35?
Yeah, great question. So that's really a two-part question. What I would really like to do is focus on faith and family and making sure that we're pushing forward in faith and family and protecting. And so, for example, I was just talking with some colleagues and some friends. I was down in West Palm Beach at a gathering with the Family Policy Council. State legislators from all over the country are gathering there, talking about faith and some of the unique challenges, the onslaught, even from, by the way, our own parties. The Republican Party not allowing certain things, the bills to protect life, to protect our kids, to protect kids in the bathroom and the freedom. And so I really think that, for example, the judiciary one would be important. You don't always have to be a lawyer to be on there, but what the heart behind that is, many times I believe there are laws, but there's not enough teeth in the law. There's not enough bite. And just because you have a law doesn't mean there's something to prevent people. And I'll give you an example of this. If you remember, I was debating or wanting to debate during SOTA, West 2 News, the NBC affiliate, kicked me out of their building because I was not vaccinated. Well, that's against the law. The governor had already signed the law, but what they didn't care about was there wasn't any consequences in that. In fact, we had to fight together with the Republican Party of Florida, and it took 5 months, and they got fined, wait for it, $10,000, which is what, maybe a 15-second commercial? And so if there's not enough teeth in this, they are going to keep doing whatever they want to do, and they're daring us to fight. And so we need that. Now the second part, remind me of the second part real quick.
What's your priority issue for your agenda and how will that
Right. So priority issues, I would say the 3 main ones are insurance. Insurance is a big deal. The home and auto, by the way, I'm not only, I'm a constituent myself in my home insurance. I have farmers. Guess what is in the news? I called my guy. He's like, yeah, we're leaving. And so that's affecting me personally as well. The auto, it just keeps going out, and this is affecting everyday Floridians right here in District 35. The traffic is a mess. It doesn't have to be. We need leadership. We need to start gathering some federal dollars in addition to what we have. We need to fund the Department of Transportation here and start bringing solutions. And then I say protecting our kids has got to be front and center. We've got to protect our kids. That includes human trafficking, which, by the way, major center, we talked about the Sound of Freedom movie, but protecting our kids at school from indoctrination, from this gender ideology, from drag queen shows. These are things that we need to keep pushing forward.
Scott, thank you very much for the answer. Thank you very much for the answer. Can I get a close update? Which subcommittee did you say? The judiciary?
Judiciary, and health and human services, maybe the education, anything that is involving faith and family push forward to protect the families and our kids here in Florida. By the way, I'm a very strong pro-choice. We're going to be talking about that. And so we need to make sure that our education is not indoctrination.
It can be a challenge getting on those subcommittees, right?
Well, here's the bottom line. I can have ideas and thoughts and suggestions, but I'm not the one who chooses, and I can't go in there and dictate that. It's chosen by the government. Yeah, so I mean, it's a good question, but ultimately it's not going to be me who decides because I'm not in the power play here.
Thank you for the answer. I'm going to move on to our third question, okay? You guys are good?
Say your name.
I'm Scotty Moore, what?
All right. I'm Christian Suarez. I'm with Political Salsa and the Public Trust Network. I got to say thank you to everybody for waiting. I was the one coming late from all the way from Seminole County. We do care about what's not out here, so.
Thank you. Thank you for coming all the way down here. Thank you.
All right, so number 3, this is right in your wheelhouse. This is to deal with families. This past week, another homeowner insurance company gave a notice that they're leaving Florida.
Yeah.
With homeowners paying over double in the last 24 months for their homeowner insurance premiums, do you think the governor and legislator did enough this past session to address this critical public policy issue for our citizens? And if not, what's your plan to address this issue?
Yeah, well, I think they greatly underestimated it. I don't know, I wasn't there, so I don't know their thought process. I don't know why we didn't go as far as we did. Obviously, it was very short. And the thing is this is very, very important, again, for me personally as well. Like insurance rates are going through the roof. And this is in a time when we have Biden's economy, inflation's going up, prices are going up, the power of the dollar is going down. It's not a good combination here, folks. And so we need to have a special session called. We need to start dealing with this. We need some good leadership. We need to have some good conversations with insurance companies from around the nation and try to figure out what's it going to take, what are we going to do. But by the way, my dad would always say, and he's a wise guy sometimes, but he would always say, son, you buy insurance hoping to never use it. And that's true, but when you do need it, it's there. And what you can't do and what we can't allow these companies to do is that clearly they know we live in Florida, clearly they know that hurricanes, this is not a new phenomenon. And so they need to understand the risk, but you can't come in when it's good and then leave when it's bad and then kind of say, hey, we need to play by a certain amount of rules. And so the legislature needs to start setting some good boundaries. There needs to be leadership.
Can you speak to the tension at all? I mean, I think we all can agree homeowners premiums should go down. Can you speak at all to the tension and where the conflict is? Why is it that we're having such a hard time with it?
Well, I mean, it's a risk mitigation factor here type of thing, and costs are going up. I mean, one of the things, listen, due to COVID and great leadership here, a lot of people have moved to our state. We've got great, and by the way, that's great for insurance companies. Why? Because there's a great market here. People are wanting. But they also need to understand there's risk, and they're trying to mitigate their risk. We are as well. We're trying to figure out, okay, what premium can I afford? What coverage does that give me? How does this work? And we all deal with that. But what we can't allow them to do is make some money and then just leave when it's tough, knowing the circumstances. We need good leadership. We need to hold them together and accountable. And we need to say, listen, let's come together. Let's figure out a solution. And that's from Tallahassee. They need to be contacting and dealing with this. And by the way, our governor has been leading well, but he's been MIA. There's a lot of stuff happening right now here in Florida. We need some focus. We need some leadership. We need a special session. We need to deal with this.
Thank you for the answer.
I'm the fourth question.
Yes.
Okay, so this one hits home for me a little bit because I am a community association manager. That's what I do as a living. So this is a really touchy subject. Are you familiar with HOA stuff? Are you comfortable with talking about it?
Sure. I by no means claim to be an expert, but I live in an HOA. A lot of people do here in Florida.
Yes. So the question is, more homeowners are currently at odds with their HOAs and HOA management companies. Allegations of fraud, business practices, and failure to be transparent when it comes to the request for financial disclosure. Just to name a few issues homeowners have raised regarding this issue. If elected, do you think any major changes are needed for Florida Statute 720, and many other ones, to give more protection to homeowners?
So I'll answer that going back to a way that I answered the previous question is, if we don't have any teeth in a law, then what's good for the law? What's it useful for? And by the way, if we do have teeth but don't enforce it, how is that good? For example, we have plenty of laws restricting people from crossing over the southern border. But if we're not enforcing those laws, guess what happens? And if we're choosing, by the way, to not enforce certain laws, can we not enforce income? I prefer not to just use that. Okay? So the reality is there needs to be some teeth in the law, and I think what's happened is, and again, I'm not an expert on this, but you've got some very clever lawyers who are writing up some very strong documents that are somewhat bulletproof.
Yes.
And you get in, and I think the heart behind an HOA, generally speaking, is to prevent people from putting toilets and mattresses in their front yard. But leave it to human nature, and it goes a little bit overboard. And by the way, sometimes it's the board. Sometimes you have a very relaxed, great board that's not over the top, and it's very fun. It's a good environment, good neighborhood. Sometimes when the leadership changes, also the reality of the neighborhood and enforcing that can get very strict and very out of control, very dangerous. And sometimes there's secrecy, sometimes there's, hey, I want to do this, it's a quid pro quo, you do this for me, for my friend, I start hiring my friends, and it can get very dangerous. And so, you know, I'm a very much a limited government guy. I don't think we need to keep enforcing, but I do think we need protection, and I think there's a balance there.
Just as an idea, is there a possibility that maybe we can add, for example, if you are on a CDD board, it's considered a governmental board, and you are required to fulfill and provide financial documents as a board member. Is that something that you may consider as an HOA board members to maybe help mitigate the shady transactions between board members and management companies?
Again, I don't know all the specifics, but I think anytime we can bring into light perhaps some things and allow it to be very transparent, it's helpful for everybody. And when things aren't in the light, there's a lot of room, even when it's starting out with not intending to do that, but we're all humans and we can tend to do maybe things that we wouldn't normally do.
Yeah.
And so I think what the idea is preventing that. But again, I'm not looking for Tallahassee to start mandating from top down. That's what we need less of. But we do need protections. And so finding that balance.
But part of that situation is also that we have CDDs that we're supposed to be done.
What's the CDD?
It is a community development district. I always get them confused.
Community Development District.
Yes. So essentially, what it is I'm not sure you're aware.
Yeah.
But it's the builder's bond. It's passed on to the homeowner.
Yeah.
So what happened many
I
years ago?
purposely chose not to be in one
Exactly.
because they
It's
have
two
a
HOAs.
length of time
Yes.
for 30 years, but the way I understand it is they can be renewed or extended.
Exactly.
And it seems like in perpetuity. which
You
seems
still
very-
have two HOAs.
Is it time?
Sorry.
I think we want to see
Time.
what the
Sorry.
teeth
I
look
was
like.
just like,
Is
I
it
thought it was mood lighting. Can I-
Well, I'm sorry. This is a
Don't
very
worry.
sensitive subject.
Don't worry. We'll have time.
Scotty!
We'll have time. I'm one of those clever lawyers. I want to go into the teeth, what the teeth look like.
Wait, okay, I need to go to this chair now, and
Yeah,
I think the crowd wants more.
It just takes a little while to peel back, right? HOAs are kind of convoluted, and
Yes.
I hear you saying we got to put teeth in it, but I wonder what that looks like to you. What does it mean to put teeth into a law, and what will it take?
Well, so teeth in the law there needs to be some consequences. You know, you're not going to change without consequences. I mean, it's a common basic thing for our kids. If you say to your kids don't do that, and they do that, and you have no consequences, what is the motivation for change?
But
And-
one of the biggest issues is that it took away the ability for a homeowner to report a management company or a board anonymously. Now you have to put your name, your address, who you are, where you live, and all that stuff to submit a complaint, which takes the ability to someone anonymously not getting any lashback from the board, from
Sure,
your neighbors,
sure.
from your
I
management
understand.
company. That's something that was added several years ago, and it should be retracted because the anonymous should be protected in every form.
That sounds like teeth the other way.
Here.
And so, the other way, so here's what I commit to do. I commit to show up, to have a discussion, and to bring the will of the people to Tallahassee. And that's what's really important. Not what I think, although I have opinions, but I think it's important to show up, have discussions, and to represent the district.
We've gotten further
Okay.
down the road with you than your opponents. That's right.
Well, I mean, showing up is half the battle, and then having a discussion and trying to understand and figure things out. Obviously, it's a pretty complicated thing.
Can we get a show of hands in the room? Is anybody, are you a member of an HOA? Because I feel like St. Cloud, yeah? Okay, it's about half and half. Okay, she has a question. Okay.
Well, okay.
The HOAs need term limits for their board officers.
Yeah.
And they need to take away this thing about they have to have 1/3 of the community available for the
A quorum. Yeah, it's very difficult.
Yeah.
I was in an HOA where they could never get a quorum, and so they just had been. They just couldn't do it. In fact, I was a part of the group trying to get those affidavit letters, those letters that people would attest to saying, hey, you can vote for me, to try to. I forgot the name of the proxy. Thank you, the proxy, and we still didn't get people to. So I understand. And by the way, I've been for term limits for U.S. Congress. We have term limits here within the Florida State Legislature.
Seems democratic.
I think it's important. There's a tremendous amount of power when
So much with the HOAs. Well, we don't want to get too bogged down with
Yes.
this issue. Thank you so much
Let's
for speaking
move on
on
to the
this.
next question.
Hey, thank you, Scotty. Now, you said you didn't want to get bogged down into the HOAs, but I have a question about those. The CDDs came up, the Community Development Districts. And what a lot of people don't know in Osceola County is about those. And they serve the same purpose as like a St. Cloud City Commission, Kissimmee City Commission, but they don't do a lot of the stuff that has to do with law enforcement and crime. They might do the aesthetics in the community. Celebration has about a $3 million budget. Harmony's $2 million. Remington is a smaller one. It only has $1,100,000. But those are all elected positions that go on the ballot. And the Republican Party is currently recruiting people to run for those because we need small government people on all of these local boards. And then we'll be able to make a big change in your local communities.
Right. Very important. Again, local government, power to the people, but we gotta have some checks and balances in place. I think that's what we're discussing, some checks and
I think the
balances.
message is pretty clear. I think he knows HOA is on your radar.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, how many people have been around Central Florida for the past 10 years? Okay, a lot of us. So we all know the effects of the residential growth which has occurred.
Yeah.
Recently, attacks on home rule have been nonstop from the state legislature. And what that would do is strip the local government, and it would strip everybody here of local control of development regulation. Do you support getting rid of home rule?
No, I think anytime that we have a government, whether it's the federal government ruling over the states or it's Tallahassee ruling over, it's very dangerous. Again, remember that famous quote that Ronald Reagan said? Those 9 famous words, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. Listen, I think there's times when the government can step in, Tallahassee, to help, checks and balances. However, I am more of a local government person. Let's get the people who are in the community involved. And if you have people coming in, if you have Tallahassee just coming in and saying, we're gonna do this and we're gonna do that, we know best. That doesn't fly very well with me. And we've seen it in different spots. The most recent one that I've heard about was, I think, Anna. And I know there's some unique challenges with tons of people wanting to be a part of that beautiful place. So they are working on getting a parking structure. But I believe the power needs to continue to stay locally. And that's what the representation. That's why we have representation. That's why we have a constitutional government where you can elect people and get involved in situations like this. And then, by the way, you can also kick them out of office if they're not doing what they ought to be doing. I think there's power. But if you don't have that representation and the state government's coming in and doing what they want, that's very dangerous. It can be. Again, people can have great intentions, but checks and balances. That's really important.
Who's the other person on this side of this argument? Let's flesh it out for the audience if we can. You know, who's opposed to home rule? Who would not want home rule? I mean, it seems to me like everybody would want local.
Well, I mean, I think there's certain people who would say, like, the traffic is bad and we want to decide that, for example, at Anna Maria Island, I think they're building a 3-story parking structure. And I think there were previous rules that you couldn't do that. And so I think the residents of that area didn't want that.
So development.
Well, I mean, developers, there's a bunch of different people who probably have an opinion. I'm not saying specifically, listen, I'm pro-growth. We need to have growth, and I'm very much for a capitalist mindset where you're engaging, but there needs to be, not at the expense of just ruling over, this idea of even eminent domain. If someone comes in, if there's no recourse locally, if they just come in and say, hey, we're going to value this at such and such price, and we're going to put an exchange, and we decide because we can. And I just don't think that that's important. I don't think that's good, and I think it's important to have the local control. Now, however, I think there needs to be discussion and engagement. Again, it can't be one way or the other. We need to have that balance. If you picture a ball, like just basketball or whatever, I played basketball growing up, if it's not inflated properly, it just it's a dud.
Development brings tax revenue, I guess, right?
Yeah, and so we need that balance. But if you overinflate the ball, it gets oblong and it's not round anymore, and it doesn't bounce. It just goes everywhere. We need to find that balance between our community, development, economic growth, tourism. We have a lot of people showing up in the state of Florida as tourists and moving here. And by the way, one of the questions is talking about traffic and things like that. We need to get more federal dollars invested in the state of Florida because it's very disproportionate, the amount of people coming here versus a state that I used to live in a long time, North Dakota, which has got 700,000 residents.
So, yeah, the next question is related to this, and I was trying to use it as a segue. I'm not so great at this, though, so forgive me. But this past legislative session, a new law was passed and signed by the governor to deter residents from fighting out-of-control development in their community. The new law allows developers to sue and recoup all costs, legal fees, and any costs and delays from building from any legal challenges by residents to stop residential, by residents to start residential developments from being approved by local municipalities. Do you support this law? If not, what are your plans to protect the citizens of District 35 against the harm of out-of-control development in the region?
Yeah, so I believe that people need a recourse to be able to sue. If there's something happening and you don't have a recourse, it's there. Now, I suspect, I don't know, I wasn't there, I wasn't part of the discussion, I wasn't part of the making of the law, but I suspect there could be other factors where people are trying to impede growth, and just for the sake of creating procedural problems and suing, just to slow things down, being kind of a nuisance. I mean, if it's able to do it and they're able and they have a right, and you're trying to sue just because you don't want that to grow, that's dangerous and not helpful. If they're encroaching in your rights, that's a different story. That's a different reality. You know, it's a different side of that coin where it's like, no, well, we need to have a recourse to be able to fight back against that. And that's what I would say. I think it's really important to have people to have power to engage. And development should not just be able to rule over, but in the same way, I think if we have a rogue person who just continues to file some frivolous suits, I used to live in an area that did that, and it just slowed things down so much. That's not helpful either. New roadway, for example, traffic's a major issue. We're gonna create some new roadways, but someone brings up, hey, we've got this protected grasshopper that they just found, or environmental studies, or maybe it's not even a protected thing, but we need to study the area to make sure. Well, those studies can last a long time, and they can cost a ton of money. And they're not saying I'll cover it. Who are they asking to cover it? They're asking the developers to say, hey, we need this. Or if it's a statewide thing, you know, if it's like we're putting in a new road, the taxpayers are. And so it can get really, and once they're done with that study, they're going to put in a new one saying, hey, there's, fill in the blank. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but lawyers are pretty good at creating obstacles at times. And so I think there's a two sides to the coin. However, I continue to go on to power of the people and making sure that we have protection so that we don't have an out of control local government, state government, or federal government doing whatever they want, and we just have to lay down and take it.
Okay, question number 7. As we experience the effects of our boom in growth in Central Florida, transportation in the district is experiencing huge capacity issues. Take Narcoossee Road, which is currently at 150% capacity, and to be honest, a real headache for the residents of the community.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, between 4 and 3, you can't. As our next representative,
Crazy, what do you mean? I'm like, oh, it's both and, like you gotta, like turning left, like you can't just wait for a perfect time because, I mean, so many people, you gotta go. But you gotta know when to go. Like, and it's just and so the idea is you need the balance, but I think it's a major issue, and I've been saying this for a long time, and I agree. I think, yes, we need to invest. People say there's that saying that you invest in what you care about, and you can't invest in everything. It's true for our home budget, whatever. I mean, we have a lot of different things that we want to do. Trust me, my daughters tell me all the things they want to do, and I keep trying to remind them, well, we can't do everything, and so we have a limited budget, and so at the state level, we need to understand what's happening and where do we need to invest, but also we have a federal government, and this is where we need to work together with our U.S. senators and our U.S. congressmen and women to get some federal dollars. And I've talked a lot with some friends in the transportation area. We can do this. This is doable. It's going to take some investment. It's going to take some money. It's going to take some leadership and focus. What we can't afford is to wait and just hope it gets better by waiting. That's a bad solution. That's not good. And by the way, it's not just Narcoossee, because I spent a lot of time on Narcoossee, but I guarantee you, every time I'm coming down, because I live in Orange County, every time I'm down here, the turnpike, I mean, it's just like a bottleneck. Poinciana, if you're heading out there. I mean, we could probably,
Pleasant Hill.
yeah, Pleasant Hill Road, like we could talk about the different areas and spend where we need really some strong investment. But it's gonna take money, it's gonna take some focus.
No, it's taking to take Darren Soto out. Yes.
Well, and I think our current representation in the U.S. Congress is not adequate, and we need to fix that as well. Absolutely. So, but it's going to take also some federal dollars, and we don't need to send the same amount of federal dollars to North Dakota or Montana, which are great, but we're the third largest state in the union with a tremendous growth rate here, and we need some help.
Okay, let's switch over and talk about education for just a minute. We have a new school choice law that allows parents to choose the best educational opportunity for their child, as the state education dollar now follows the child without any special vouchers. This is a great start, but we have a growth boom right here in Central Florida. Both Orange and Osceola school districts are experiencing large teacher and support staff shortages. As a state representative, how would you assist these local school districts and private schools to address these critical issues?
Right. Well, the school choice bill that passed is very welcome from my family included. We brought our two daughters and they went to a Christian co-op school, which is run primarily by parents to try to keep the costs low, but also because it's almost like an extension of homeschooling, where the parents are very involved. We know everybody in there. There's a high bar to make sure that we have the same value system, and it's kindergarten through 8th grade. And the reason why they did that, by the way, was like 27 years ago. I think knowing what we know now, years ago, they may have changed that, but the purpose was to re-assimilate our kids into high school while still being at home, so it's not such a shock to go from such a great environment to perhaps to college, which could be pretty crazy. And so we're using that this year, the school choice dollars. However, my daughter, who's going into high school, she's a freshman, just finished her freshman year of high school. That's already being reinvested, but there's a lot of problems within Orange County public schools and probably Osceola public schools. You know, we've gotten a letter saying on different bathrooms you can use and the different gender and the different craziness. And so these are issues that we continue to fight. And if we as conservatives, as Christian conservatives, do not show up and fight and push back, they will continue to push that agenda forward. And so we need to stop that. So education is very important. However, we cannot allow the continuation of indoctrination with our money towards our kids. That's flat out wrong. And I would like to see some benefit for homeschooling that I need to understand better, because the way I understand it right now is if you choose to, you don't receive any of that money, yet you're paying into it, but that sure could help out with materials and others. And so people who choose that should have that ability. And I think the parents who are teaching should absolutely get part of that, because it's hard work. It's hard work, and it's worthy, because they're investing in our kids and our future. And so protecting our kids is fundamental. Making sure that Orange County and Osceola County schools are not, they're saying one thing, but they sometimes are doing a different. Just like Disney, the CEO, Bob Iger, said, hey, we're not indoctrinating your kids. There's clear videos on there saying and showing from the Disney people. And so just because someone says something doesn't mean their actions aren't doing it. And we need to double check and make sure and hold them accountable.
So to be clear, you would be in favor of a law that would carve out money to give to families that are homeschooled?
Yeah, I think it's very important. If that money is going to the kids, it cannot just be for, for the private. We've done great things, and when you're passing laws, you don't get it necessarily 100% right the first time, and sometimes there's unintended consequences that you need to go back and shift and change. So I think we made some great gains. I would say those who are doing homeschooling should have, and I'm not saying it should be equal to and depending on, and I would like to look at getting that money to families who are homeschooling, because they are absolutely teaching, they're investing, and they have costs with materials that are associated with that child. And if it follows the child, it should follow the child, period.
That was my question. It seems intellectually consistent, actually, if that's the way the law is framed to say,
If it follows the child, it should follow the child.
Yeah, there are some studies on that they started. They take a look and see how much money should be allocated to a child, and they're looking at maybe giving 50% of the money to the families to homeschool, and the other 50% goes to the public school for the construction aspect.
Yeah, and I understand there are costs associated with public school, and I'm not against public school. I grew up in public school. What I am against is the indoctrination and the pushing, and oftentimes what we see are generation behind of what people are indoctrinating and pushing now, that gets pushed into in the next generation in government and businesses, and it's very dangerous. And so it should be education, not indoctrination. And again, it's the accountability. Who's holding them accountable, and what is the teeth and consequences related to that? Because if they say they're not doing it, and we say, okay, but they are, what's going to happen? And too often, it's a slap on the wrist.
So school budgets are traditionally already low. I mean, it's safe to say if we went down this road and we did have a bill like this, it would impact the current budgets right now. I mean, safe to say they would probably go down even further. Do you think there'd be any unintended consequences from that?
Well, I think there will be consequences. I think the thing is people are starting to see they're choosing not to. I think if schools were great, if there was great education involved in that, people would choose to perhaps have their kids there.
So
But in a free market area, you can't continue to fund things that aren't working and more, and then expect people just to continue, because it's our kids who are suffering. It's our kids who are suffering, and we have a responsibility as parents to protect our kids. And I'm all about let's try to find a solution, but you can't just keep throwing money and not having any accountability on how are we doing it.
Thanks for the answer.
So there was a comment about school budgets that have been higher than they've ever been, but there's mismanagement. And so I understand, listen, costs are going up for everybody, but it has to do with dollars and cents in management. I would joke around, but I would say I'm not running my campaign like the federal government spends money, which is debt spending. So we raise the money and we spend what we have, not what we hope to have or what we maybe will have, because guess what? The federal government doesn't print more money to bail me out. And I'm not going into debt, and so we need to manage well our money. It's a simple concept. It's just not easy to do, but again, it's leadership. We need to have good leaders who are making some of the hard decisions, and we're coming together as a community, and we're pushing forward.
Thank you for your answer. I suspect your answer is going to be similar, because this is going in the same area. You know, housing prices and rents. How do you look at the legislature's role? Do you think there's any way, can they react fast enough? Can you actually get laws passed in time to address the needs that people have right now? I mean, gas is up, all the prices up, inflation, all of that.
So we're seeing a lot of this in the free market. There's going to be a lot of fluctuation. What we also saw was the government shutting down some of these sectors. And even though Florida reopened really, really soon afterwards, there were certain kind of crazy counties that were still fighting this. Orange County, Osceola to a certain extent, were fighting the governor to try to reopen and that was affecting businesses. If you were a small business owner here, you were affected. And if you were open and running, chances are you were still getting goods from outside of the state, from somewhere, maybe from overseas, but when they shut down the ports and the gas and the transportation, it's all affecting us. It's this supply chain crisis that happened. The cost of lumber and wood went out of control, and so people stopped building. We have a housing crisis. We're not building enough. But again, a good CEO, a good leader, is looking at the whole field and saying, guys, we're running here. We need to put where focus goes, energy flows, if you've ever heard that. And you need to make sure you can't focus on everything, but if there's certain areas that we need focus in, housing is, there are a ton of people moving here, we need to help. But I'm not in favor of just kind of subsidizing and pushing or having the government start telling people what you ought to charge. That's dangerous. That's draconian. That's socialism, that's communism. That's where they're coming in and trying to tell you as an owner of an apartment building, if you want to do this. But in the same respect, we've got price gouging things. For example, when there's a hurricane, you can't, what normally sells for $3 and jack it up to $30 or $300. And so we need to have some, again, balance in understanding what this is. But I'm not in favor of the government trying to come in, but I am in favor of trying to create jobs and opportunities not pro legalization of marijuana. I don't think it should happen, and I would fight against that. I don't think it's good for our community. I don't think it's good for our kids. I don't think it's good for our families. However, if it were to be passed, again, some of the challenges that I feel like I have many friends, and just because you pass and legalize something, there's still enforcement of and the protection of families and our kids. And I'm worried about employers and the production of work. You know, people are not going to maybe be as motivated and kind of like, I don't know. And so we've got to have, what are some enforcement mechanisms? In other words, the question is, if it did pass, what would you do? I would fight to not have it pass. And if it is, I would still fight every way to make sure that it is not easy to get or to do, or there's high bar of how you ought to act. And I'm going to have zero tolerance for you driving under the influence of marijuana, for you acting, for you doing stupid stuff, for you selling it to my kids who should not, or giving it to my kids. Those are just a few of the many concerns that I have if this were to happen in Florida.
I'll just provide a little pushback, I guess. You mentioned Colorado, and can you speak to at all any of the, and we've also spoken about free markets, of course. I understand Colorado had some sort of a boom, and I wonder if you could speak to this. And they had some sort of a boom related to other industries that supported this. But everything went cash because the federal banks don't support it.
Sure. I mean, so what you're talking about is dollars and economy, and that's important. However, I'm not willing to sacrifice what I believe is Florida and our families based on an economy that will grow, sure. But the illegal drug trade produces a lot of cash, and there's a lot of economic. If we, Oregon tried to, should we just kind of slippery slide, just allow to have, the economic boom if that happens? I think we got to factor in sure, there's an upside, but what's the downside? And not all things are equal. If it produces money, does it mean that we ought to bring it to Florida? Not necessarily. I mean, because how is it going to affect our family? There's a reason why they call it a gateway drug. It's the start. It's dangerous. And I'm very against it. So sure, it may produce some economic, and if people want that, they're free to go to Colorado and hang out with the crazies there if they want.
So it's a moral slide is the way you look at it, moral slide. Before it was medical marijuana, now we're at recreational. So
yeah, listen, and I understand medical marijuana, I'm not a big fan of legalizing. I understand that there's certain people in their studies, and I'm not an expert at all in this. However, the danger with that is once it gets out in the market, it's hard to, how do you verify who's getting it? It's already dangerous, but to legalize it altogether,
We're going to ask the questions. If you submitted a question.
okay.
Okay, so if you
like,
submitted a question, we're going to go into the questions that were asked by the audience, and you have to submit a question in order to ask a question. So first up, Teresa wanted to ask, out of all of the candidates, it seems that most of you have the same platform. What are the differences? What differentiates you from the other candidates?
Yeah, it's great. Well, I think we're right now pretty clearly. And might I add, this is not just the first time that this has happened. And so I think it's really important that you do a deeper dive into the candidates. I oftentimes would say, and I really do believe, that not all candidates are alike. Just because you have an R or say you're conservative, so does Liz Cheney, and let's see where that goes. So my point with that is to say not all candidates are alike, and you need to make sure. Here's some other reasons why. I work extremely hard. Anyone who's seen me, who has followed with me, has seen that I work really hard. I show up, I listen. I don't always agree, but that's okay, because we don't always have to agree. But I think it's very important to have the dialogue. Showing up is very important. Other things that are very important, you don't last 20 years working in the mission field with Campus Crusade for Christ, having to raise your own funds. By the way, there was no supplementation from crew. If you got a short paycheck, they didn't just fill in the blank, like you got a short paycheck. But there's a major motivator if you get a short paycheck to start getting on the phone and dialing for dollars. But you don't last for over 2 decades because of the money, because it's not a high-paying job, but it's the mission. So that's another thing. You can look at my background. I'm very strong pro-family, pro-faith, pro-First Amendment, and pro-religion, freedom of speech. Second Amendment, very important, protecting the right to bear arms. I've been very consistent in that. I ran last cycle for U.S. Congress, and I had the support of Senator Ted Cruz, Senator Rick Scott, President Trump's Chief of Staff, Mr. Mark Meadows. John Stemberger in Florida Family Policy Council supported me as well. There again, Matt Stayworth, Liberty Council, and many local leaders. And so I think those are some of the people that if you don't know me, perhaps you know them, and they don't just link arms with anybody. So that's just a few of the reasons why I think I'm the best candidate for this. And I'm willing to work hard and to fight for what I believe we all agree on.
Thank you so much for showing up. That is definitely. So I myself am a lifelong born and raised Osceola County resident. So the question has been asked, how long have you been in Florida? Because you already said you live in Orange County, so that's part of your district, but how long have you lived in Florida?
Great. I moved here in 2007 with my wife. We moved from Brazil. High school is bigger than the whole town they're up in. I went to college in the Fargo, North Dakota area, so I doubled down on cold, and I went even colder. That's where God really got a hold of my life, and I wanted to dedicate my life to helping people know the transforming power of Jesus Christ. I ended up moving to Brazil and lived there for 6 years. I got married in Brazil. I didn't meet her in Brazil. It's a whole other story. It's a great story. But when I moved to Brazil, I didn't speak any Portuguese. And it's one of those things where you got to show up and do the hard work. But in 2007, I moved here. And so I speak Portuguese fluent. I also speak what I call a portunhol, uma combinação de espanhol e português. Entonces yo hablo español, pero there's a bunch of Portuguese words that get in. So it's a combination. It's like Spanglish, if you've heard of Spanglish, but it's Portuguese and Espanol, right? Spanish. So, but I've been here since 2007, and talking about parenting, I'll say this. I oftentimes throw out to my girls how amazing Florida is, and wouldn't it be great to raise your family here in Florida? Because I really want them to stay. I've traveled all throughout the United States. I've traveled throughout the world. I love the state of Florida. It's a great state.
So one of the questions has to do with, what would you do to prevent factories from being built in certain areas? Can you hear me now? And so to add, because this is something that's not in your district, how would you kind of reach across and try to help maybe other citizens that reach out or come to you with other concerns in the immediate area that somewhat may affect your area? How would you assist in those issues that may arise?
Yeah. So maybe you've heard it said, maybe not, but leadership is not just positional, but it's also influence. In fact, there are people who have a positional part of leadership, but they have very little influence. When you get up to whether it's Tallahassee or Washington, D.C., you're going to be one of 120 different state House of Representatives, or in the federal government, one of 435. You can't just go in there thinking like, hey, I'm going to just change everything. I'm going to be the only guy. You got to work with people. You got to influence. You got to connect. You got to talk. You got to listen. But you got to bring that influence. You got to share this vision and knowledge and understand what's happening. And so I don't know specifically what's happening with things, if there's polluting involved or if it's just kind of a bad decision. But again, this is why local government matters. Osceola County Commissioner, Orange County Commissioner, local governments, those are the ones with tremendous power. In my local community, there was an area, it was a residential, they were trying to rezone it to put a 6-story building that had nothing to do with it. And they were trying to convince, saying like, we fought that, and it was hard because the Orange County Commission group is very liberal, and they were trying to push an agenda. You could see that, and we had to organize. I couldn't just go in there. We had to organize our whole neighborhood to fight against that. Very few people did, but the ones we did had a big voice, and we stopped it. That's how you do it. You got to influence, and you got to show up and be a part of the solution.
Awesome. Okay. So if you are elected, you'll be required to swear an oath to uphold the Constitution. What are the 5 rights protected under the First Amendment of the Constitution?
That's a great question. So, freedom of press, religion, speech, the right to assemble, and to petition the government. And so, by the way, it's really important that, come on, Bam, what do you think of that? I didn't think I was gonna do it, but I did it. Nancy Pelosi shut down the US Capitol, and we did not have the right to petition there or assemble. Those are constitutional rights. Make no mistake that they're coming after our constitutional rights. And they're trying to frame it up in different ways, but these are rights that we have, the Second Amendment included, and that we need to make sure we're electing the right people who know it, who are willing to fight and have a backbone, and aren't going to just be gentle and lay down, but we're going to fight. That's the type of candidate I'm going to be, and I look forward to earning your vote and having you vote for me. By the way, the special election was just announced on the way over here, so things are in motion. November 7th is the day for the primary, and I sure hope that I can earn your vote. Vote Scotty Moore, Scotty with a Y, ScottyMooreForFlorida.com. Boom.
All right, thank you. Cliff.
Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Scotty Moore. I don't know about you, but thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for our panelists as well. Man, this is so important. How many people here got a benefit out of having this happen tonight? Isn't that how powerful it is? Thank you, Osceola Action, for putting this together, and all sponsors. We also want to say thank you for each and every one of us for coming out, spending time with us. It's so much better to hear this coming direct and understanding that we got to know who's driving, right? We got to know where we're going, and we can't just blindly just go and go, well, he's got a nice face. I think there's a good person there. Wrong. Okay, next thing, if you're please make sure that you're forwarding on Facebook. You're letting people understand that this is your opportunity to understand who your candidates are, how it is to our Constitution and our way of life. And I also want to thank again our panelists as well. I also want to ask for a second, Mark Cross, would you mind saying some things about the Osceola Republican Party as well, and maybe a few words so that we can let everybody know?
Yeah, I'd be more than happy to. Before I do that, I'd like to thank Scotty for being up here. He made this look very easy. And I've been, part of panels and candidates and stuff for 25 years, and it's not easy being the only person up there. Usually there's more than one person, and you have a chance to collect your thoughts between questions. And everybody, we just peppered him one question after the other. So I thought he did a really good job, and that's commendable.
Thank you. Thank you.
I am Mark Cross. I'm chairman of the Osceola County Republican Party, and we have a meeting every month at Knights of Columbus, the second Monday, and everyone is invited. We're working real hard out there trying to change those minds. We did really well last time around. We had the county go for Ron DeSantis. And I'll give you some news if you haven't heard it yet, but there have been around 40,000 differential between Democrats and Republicans. And they ended up, they culled the voting list and got rid of a lot of active voters, and our differential now is 24,000. So we've got rid of, 15,000 Democrats that were just sitting on the rolls, drawing dust. So, and part of that is our governor, and then Nancy, do you want to raise your hand up there? Nancy Michael, who works on our election integrity team for the party, and she works hard, and she's part of doing that too. So, our goal for the party this next election cycle is we want to have Republicans running at every single seat. And it's not just, you can't be just a Republican to get on the ballot. We want to elect good Republican citizens that are professionals, that have the right background and the right constitutional attitude, so we can take our county. There's too many wrong with the county that's has gone on for years. And you can see tonight the main issues are traffic, development, education. And if we can concentrate on all of those issues, I think we're going to do really good at the polls. We're having our annual fundraiser dinner August the 12th, and it's called our Faith, Freedom, and Family Luncheon with Senator Rick Scott. It'll be held at Kissimmee Christian Church at noon. So everyone is invited. There's going to be some stuff put out on Facebook. We already have, it'll be like 25 tables, and I believe we've already sold about, I think, 18 or 19 of the tables. So we're coming along really well, and it will be sold out. So if you have any questions, just give me a call. Thanks. Thank you, Cliff.
Thank you, Mr. Cross. We appreciate that. It's so important that we as a community are united. It's so important that we can find common ground, although we all come from different backgrounds and some people have a full head of hair. But the reality, thanks, Ron. You're my ride tonight. You're supposed to, thanks for the laugh. Never mind. Okay. Oh, boy, I got to work on that joke. All right, so
You
folks,
didn't ask me, but I do want to say, I drove out here. I might as well tell you guys what I'm about.
Do it.
I think I can put a bow on this, and it's going to dovetail what you're doing here. I'm with Political Salsa, something we formed a decade ago in 2014. What we do essentially is we're a straw poll and debate series, sort of like this. And the idea is we're trying to connect the electorate to those who want to lead them. So our focus is public trust. So we just recently launched a public trust network that we'll be putting on YouTube and all of that. To do more events like this. We've done something in Osceola just last year, and we want to do more things here. We've been traditionally in Orange County, and so we want to come out here a little bit more, because you're right. We have to connect them all.
Absolutely.
Seminole County, Osceola, we all have similar interests.
Central Florida here, right?
Yes.
yeah, it's so important. So with that also being said, just because we all, are not necessarily 100% aligned, but we do have commonality. And I also want to bring up who's here tonight and is part of our conservative movement. And Mr. Junior Fayor, could you please come on up here and just say a few words about the Osceola Hispanic Conservative Committee as they're here tonight as well. So please give them a big round of applause.
Hola, hola. Hola, hola. I'm in a house of Republicans, aren't I?
Yes.
We could do better on that clap, can't we? It's not for me, it's for us. Good evening. For those that don't know me, my name is JR. He's killing the name. It's Junior, JR. It's Riyad Rajab Faoud Jr. I'm Lebanese and Puerto Rican. My mom was from Puerto Rico, born in the States. I was born in Philadelphia, home of the best Philly cheesesteak. No disrespect to the house. You guys got the best brisket. We got the best cheesesteak. I am honored to be up here with you guys and talk to you guys about the Osceola Hispanic Conservative Committee. It was born in my heart maybe 2 years ago or more, and I had spoken to Mark about it, but there were some issues and some traveling that I needed to do. I am a traveling preacher. I preach Spanish around the world. You've never seen a Lebanese Puerto Rican Christian when the rest of my family is Muslim. So all the time to different countries and have great crusades, humongous crusades. So I believe in the Lord Jesus Christ with all my heart, like my brother right here. So we spoke about the Osceola Hispanic Conservative Committee. I'm a father of 6. I just had another baby. She is maybe a month and a half old. I'm almost 50. I look good for 50.
Yeah, you do.
I look good for 50. John, don't say a word. I look good for 50. I've been blessed. I just have a baby. But this is one of the reasons why I decided to jump in when Okrek and Mark spoke to me about taking the leadership of the Osceola Hispanic Conservative Group. I work a lot with the Spanish pastors here in Osceola. I've been gathering an army. I've been putting them together. Event not too long ago, we had a whole bunch of pastors. We overpacked the place. We took over. They couldn't do breakfast or lunch. We took the chairs. Jeremy was trying to stop me from taking the chairs from the diner side.
Free market, buddy.
Yeah. So we gathered these leaders because as Spanish pastors and Spanish families, we were brought up with culture, la cultura. You can say that with me, cultura. Culture. We believe that, family is the number one thing that Puerto Ricans protect. Mother, father, kids. And that's being attacked. Me having 6 kids, it'll be a cold day in hell that I would allow a teacher or allow anyone to tell my daughters, my 2 beautiful daughters, the last 2 that I have in the house. You don't know if another one pops up, but the last 2 in the house that they're boys when they're my princess. Yes. I'm not gonna allow nobody to come There's other things in the agenda that have bothered me so much and bothered some of these churches and these pastors that have gotten together, and they're conservatives. Some of them, they didn't even know that they were Republicans until I sat down and started speaking to them. Just that John Quincy Adams said. Anybody knows him?
Yes.
He said, if your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, then you're a leader. I want to inspire the Hispanics in Osceola, that means St. Cloud, to join forces with you that are here present because you care about your city, because you care about your town, because you care about your people, to fight this evil that we have in the White House. Only 2 people agree, 3 people clap. I'll take it. I'll take it. If you're getting tired because the fight has been long, you've been doing this for a long time, for many years, reinforcement is coming. And when Spanish people join up, it gets rowdy and loud.
Yes. Amen.
Amen, Cubana. Thomas Jefferson said, whenever you do a thing, act as if all the world were watching you. And that's what we're doing in Osceola Hispanic Conservative Committee. We are working hard, and we're taking serious steps to take over the county, the city, and the state. But we need your help also. So whenever you see OHCC popping up somewhere, come join us. Help us in the fight. If it's waving flags, if it's registering people, if it's having a meeting like that, come join us and help us build and take over and take back our city. And the last thing that I'm going to say, I want Cheyenne to come here. She's my vice chair, and I do have the secretary here with me, Diane. These women here, give them a round of applause. They've been working nonstop. Our good friend Ronald Reagan, en español, Ronald Reagan, okay? When you can't make them see the light, make them feel the heat. And we're gonna make them feel the heat. Cheyenne.
Hello, everyone. Just in case, my name is Cheyenne Rio Frio, aka Old River. I am a case manager. I am a homeschool mom. And, you know, hearing Scotty talk about that, you know, I've had a lot of issues with my children, and that's why I decided to homeschool. And the money should follow the child, but the best thing about homeschooling is the freedom to do whatever you want, attachments. So that's the balance that we will have to figure out, and I would love to be able to join you in that committee, because there's a lot of things that we can do. The 4 or 5 months that I've been able to it's dramatically changed. But let's Osceola Hispanic Conservative Committee, I'm the vice chair. Our goal is to engage the Hispanic community. We all have common goals, but sometimes you just gotta do it with a little bit of sazon, a little flavor, because sometimes in the culture. So we're able to sit down with them. We have one of our team members that she is actually leading in the voter registration. We gotta be able to engage with, because Ronald Reagan did say Hispanics are conservative, Republicans, they just don't know it. So they need voices like myself, Miss Diana, JR, etc. Join forces with communities like yourselves to be able to do what they need to do, because like JR said, we care about family. We care about the same things. Family, culture, don't bother me. Let me take care of my business so I can provide for my family. And that's what everybody and all Americans and Floridians care about. So we have a common goal. So our goal is to build a bridge between local Republican parties and also local organizations, and the RNK, I do healthcare, I think a lot of lives, but also being able to case manage, because I think true leadership takes multiple different disciplines working together to get the goal done. It's not just one person, one leader. It is leader motivating others to succeed. So I look forward to working with all of you guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate that. And you guys, you know, this is so important that we're all here tonight because there is commonality. Just because people are different places, different cultures, whatever we want to say, the point of the matter is that the majority of these people do not know that they really are Republicans, and we need every single one of them in the fight. Can we agree on that? All right. So right now, I want to bring up my partner. His name's Jeremy, and maybe you guys have seen him before. Jeremy, come on up here. You know, part of this is Jeremy and I are ex-military, and you know, when we started this, thank you for some of us, thank you. So when we started this together, we said, get ready, because we are in this to win, and we're going to do everything we can to fight. So that's what this is all about. And you know, Scotty showed up. Okay? You guys showed up. We showed up. And when we started Osceola Action Committee, we said if it's not us, then who? And so we dedicate our time, money, and energy just like you guys are, and we can't do it without you. So those of you watching at home, please understand that we need each and every one of us to take this back and take the fight to those who want to ruin it for us.
So thank you guys for coming out. Thank you for the panel and the moderators. We appreciate your guys' presence. Christian for coming all the way out from Seminole County. Everybody for showing up at this event. Everybody on. Can you step back a little bit, Cliff?
Sure.
Keep on going.
And then?
There you go. You see the two empty chairs?
Uh-oh.
Those are what the people who are also running against Scotty think about you and your voice. You know, Ken, I'll say this about Ken, he was working tonight, last minute had to go. But again, he's working all the time. The last two events, he couldn't show up because he was working his day job. Nothing against that. Our representative needs to be able to go to Tallahassee and fight for us. There's a lot of big issues. Homeowners insurance, you know, the fight for school choice will continue. Traffic, regulation comes to HOAs when it comes to residential development. But what's more concerning, and I'm just going to say it, Erica Booth. She was handpicked by House leadership to be in this race. Out of the $80,000 she just raised, 50 of it came from House Republican leadership. She was handpicked in Tallahassee to go to Tallahassee for our district. She doesn't represent your voice. She didn't represent your voice on the school board. She promised the voters and the parents and the children in District 5 that she was going to protect you, your rights, and your children's rights. And now she's jumping ship to go to Tallahassee because she was told to. Okay?
It's all about the money.
Exactly. And this, her empty seat here tonight, proves the point. She doesn't care about you. She doesn't care about your family. She doesn't care about our children. All she cares about is the people telling her what to do. And so I have to commend Scotty Moore, who shows up to every event, who's in a community non-stop. And that's what matters. We're not going to agree on everything. But it's showing up. It's showing he listens, that his family's around him all the time. I've met his wife and his children and his daughters. This is a man truly of faith, family, and freedom. And him showing up tonight proves the point on the Republican primary that he's the one to win it. He's the one that cares. So please share the message of Scotty with a Y Moore, because at the end of the day, this is what matters, is who's showing up to fight for you, for your voice, your family. And I had to say it, because again, the empty seats really proves the point. And that's not just this. The Republican Party had an event, and she RSVP'd and canceled last minute.
And they're still giving her the money.
And again, it's the state party. It's not the local party, it's the state party. She's been handpicked. So please show. And I'm telling you too, we got, you know, the first man of the state rep for District 47, Paula Stark. And what he'll tell you, because Paula stood up against Republican leadership on some critical issues. Because we may not have agreed with her, but she stood on principle. And she didn't lie to you when she ran for politics. What she said during the campaign, she delivered. But she shows up. They show up. And they can tell you that Republican leadership, if you jump, you're not good for District 35 when they say jump. So again, please give Scotty an applause, and please always remember that. Right. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Jeremy. Remember, it's those kingmakers where they want you to kiss the ring that are ruining the way we follow and what we believe in. So it's time to stand. We start from the bottom and we work our way to the top. And it starts with all of us. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being part of this evening. Don't forget, if you're a Democrat, we're going to have the same thing going on here. I believe it's next week. Is that right? Next Wednesday. So if you're a Democrat, we're looking forward to seeing you, and we're going to do the same thing. Guys, have a great night. Thanks for coming out.